over a long period of time is the reason that the public is so misinformed on this. And over a period of time, press accepts this narrative, Democratic strategists accept this narrative, and you come to this uh, acceptance of the mommy and the daddy party, and it's all bullshit. There's no historical reason to justify this any way, shape, or form. And I just think we got to be very vigilant on this, and we have to be very aggressive on it. Outrage has kind of been triggered by these three events that I just cannot get out of my mind. One started with I hear this from friends of mine who don't even consider voting Republican. All right, I mean they donate to Democratic candidates, that they vote Democratic, and in a short period of time, both said, you just got to see, James, that the Democrats just don't run these big cities well, and they're just not very good at crime. And then last night, I had dinner with a journalist in New Orleans and the police chief. And of course, the murder rate in New Orleans has dropped historically quickly to historic lows. And they ran a story in the paper. And the governor of Louisiana is a Republican. His top guy called the journalist and said, "You didn't give the state police enough credit." So we found out there are 900 uniformed NOPD. There are 40 state policemen in New Orleans. But they knew that they couldn't let a story go to say that the crime was dropping in New Orleans because, well, we had a black mayor and we were supposed to have high crime. Then this morning, I got up and I read, as I do every day, as you do, Judd Legum. All right? It was talking about how fast the crime rate had dropped in Baltimore. All right? Baltimore is the poster child for a dysfunctional, crime-ridden, poverty-ridden city. All right? That's not true. It's not. There is no evidence, none, that cities with Republican mayors, Oklahoma City, Fresno, used to be Jacksonville, actually now Dallas, there's no evidence, none, that they're any better. In fact, the largest crime drop in the history of the country was in a Democratic presidential administration. And this all starts back. In the 90s, we came, somebody, I think it was Chris Matthews, and I don't blame him, and my point is not to is the Democrats were the mommy party and the Republicans were the daddy party. So yeah, if you wanted neonatal care, or you wanted Social Security and Medicare, or you wanted a kind, more just party, then you would go to the mommy party. But if you wanted a low crime rate, or you wanted a booming economy, you wanted people who were going to make the tough decisions, then you're a Republican. Now, let's take the economy. Taking a little long here, but I'm trying to make a point. Every piece of evidence, you understand, not 100%, no matter what time frame that you use, and please try to correct me on this because you're going to fail. And you can take any time frame you want, after World War II, after the end of the Cold War, the start of the 60s, this century, anything you want. It's not even close. But we accept this narrative. And what really impressed me is immediately they called and said, "Oh, no, you got to give us credit for this. You can't get that involved." We never called. And if somebody if they want to do something worth a shit at the DNC, which I'm not sure they ever do, they should have a whole section. And when they see stories like this, call the journalist, call the talk radio person, call whoever it is, and correct it immediately. We don't need to. I've heard this shit we need to take that off the table. We need to take crime off the table, and we need to talk about Social Security, Medicare. James, we need to take economic issues off the table and talk about a woman's right to choose. And that shit, that advice, and that shit over a long period of time is the reason that the public is so misinformed on this. And over a period of time, press accepts this narrative, Democratic strategists accept this narrative, and you come to this acceptance of the mommy and the daddy party, and it's all bullshit. There's no historical reason to justify this in any way, shape, or form. And I just think we got to be very vigilant on this, and we have to be very aggressive on it.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to now do our listener questions, but I want to tell you, as soon as we finish, please stay tuned, because in a little over 5 minutes, we are going to announce the winner of the Carville Hunt survey of the most dangerous and worst of the Trump appointees.
The guy I voted for lost.
10 candidates. I mean, it was a tough one, but a lot of you voted, and just in a few minutes, we're going to tell you who won. But first, we want to go to our favorite segment, which is the listener questions. Again, great ones coming in this week. James, Dr. Sue in Cumberland, Rhode Island. She says, I know I am old, born in the 50s. Sue, you're a kid if you're born in the 50s. But am I alone in seeing that billionaires fighting over control of our government and political system is just wrong?
Well, not only Dr. Seward, one of my favorite states. God, I have so many friends in Rhode Island. It may be small, but let me tell you, it packs a lot of power. It might have the best Senate delegation of any state in the country, to be honest with you.
Oh, it sure does.
Yes. And by the way, you get older, and you do get older, but you do get wiser. And Dr. Sue, you're a very wise person in Rhode Island, to say the least.
Yeah. Pete, in another one of my favorite states, Raleigh, North Carolina. Pete says, that we pointed out last week that one reason Harris lost was her inability to separate herself from Biden. Doesn't every Republican have that problem in 2028? It's different, Pete. They might. Certainly, J.D. Vance, if he were the nominee, would have that problem. I don't know what Trump's popularity will be in 2028. I suspect it will be a lot lower than it is now. Now it's not very good. But there's one thing. There is a MAGA base, and it's strong. There was not a Biden base. There would have been a few people who would have been upset if Harris had broken on a few issues, not most, but a few issues in her convention speech. But it wasn't like breaking from the MAGA base. So, yeah, it might be a problem for Republicans in 2028, but we'll see.
Well, first of all, a lot of people, I get a lot of comments, and you do too, and you see a lot of people, the Democrats need to be more like the Republicans. But first of all, I'm sorry, it's really not much of a Republican Party anymore. It's all Trump, it's all MAGA. It's a little bit different. What Democrats seem a little more less organized because we're a coalition, and I certainly don't want to be part of a personality cult. I don't believe that at all. But I don't see how they come 2028. They can't escape Trump. They just can't. They can. And boy, we can't drive that home, but we can't drive anything home. But the less that we talk about it, the more we talk about the future, because people are going to be so sick of this, it's going to be unbelievable. And if I was a Democrat, I'd say I'm going to release everything to do with Jeffrey Epstein. And I want to start our future tomorrow, but we can't. If there were crimes committed, obviously we got to look into that. And I just don't think it's in our interest to wrap Trump around their necks like they wrap Biden. And we had a lot to do with that. Biden staying in until June 27th gave him an opening. And then finally, on August the 21st, everybody came to their senses, but it was either too late or we didn't do anything to separate ourselves. There's some truth to both. I think there's more truth to the latter, but that's what happened.
Yeah, sure did. One of the great tragedies of all political history, American political history. James Craig in Jonesboro, Tennessee says, are change candidates the secret to winning? If so, can we bring in enough in time?
I'm sorry, Al. Let's repeat the question. I didn't totally get it.
Yeah, it's Craig in Jonesboro, Tennessee. He said, are change candidates the secret to winning? And can we bring in enough in time?
Very yes, in wildly in the affirmative. And I would just give me a chance to address them. Jonesboro, Tennessee. One of my better friends was from Jonesboro, Louisiana, which is a town like right in the middle of North Louisiana, named E.L. Bubba Henry. He was a Speaker of the Louisiana House, and Bubba died a couple of months ago, and I got a chance to visit with him before he did. So I want to take this opportunity to pay a little tribute to E.L. Bubba Henry. Of course, Peter Hart and Mark Shields and myself led him to a 9.6% of the vote.
You almost got to double figures,
I
James.
almost
You were
said, I
just.
asked you if I could round up to double digits. But the answer is if we don't, yes, we should run 100% as the change candidate. The reason we lost in 2024 is quite simple. The country wanted change, and we refused to give it to them. I don't think we're going to repeat that mistake.
Well, I don't either, but some primaries matter. That's why in Michigan I'm cheering for Mallory McMurrow to win that Democratic Senate primary. She will be the change candidate, and I think in other states there will be people like that. Now, look, there's some places where people have such gravitas. Roy Cooper in North Carolina that it doesn't matter as much. But to the extent that you have a choice between a an incumbent, if you will, or a change candidate, man, go for change.
Look at the Democratic primary in the New York mayor's race if you don't know the power to change it.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, look at it. I mean, why do you think Spanberger's going to win by 15 points? Because she's the change candidate.
right. Same in New Jersey.
So, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, even though they have a Democratic governor, certainly you identify Mikey Sherrill more as a strange candidate than the.
And you'd be surprised if you run on change, even if you're kind of tagged with an incumbent party, you can do it. It's not that hard. It's done all the time.
Right.
But this going to be a staggering Democratic year in 2026.
Rob in Rosemont, Pennsylvania. That was the home of one of my first girlfriends, so I remember it very fondly. I'm sure she doesn't, if she's still around. Rob asked from Rosemont, healthcare is just too complicated. How can Democrats effectively cut through this fog? Rob, I disagree with you. Yeah, I think parts of healthcare are complicated. It's not complicated to say they are cutting Medicaid. They are cutting Medicaid and in part to finance tax cuts for the wealthy. That's just a simple fact. It is not complicated to say that they are cutting back the affordable health care subsidies. That is a fact. And it's also not hard to say that if their budget deficits achieve the levels they're likely to achieve, that's going to require some Medicare cuts. So, yeah, if you get in the weeds in healthcare, Rob, it can get complicated. But boy, it's not hard to talk about what the Republicans have done, I think, to injure healthcare for a whole lot of Americans.
Okay, so Rob, in one sense, you're correct. It's a kind of confused system. It's kind of complicated. The truth of the matter is, at its core, it's a explainable issue. There are three ways, and only three ways, that healthcare gets paid for. One is by the employer, two is by the individual, and three is by the government. All right. The insurance, the individual can have insurance. Medicare is nothing but a giant insurance policy for the country. So if you take away the amount that the government reimburses, you have to increase the amount that the individual reimburses or the corporations reimburse. It's a three-pronged thing. If one goes away, then it's more of the other. Now, of course, Trump famously said, "Who knew that healthcare was so complicated?" Well, it's really complicated, and there's two things that people feel very, very personal about. One is their money, and the other is their life. And healthcare is the intersection of the two things that most people think about and most people are concerned about. So it is, in one sense, a complicated, multi-layered problem. In another sense, it's a kind of simple thing. Who's going to pay? You, your employer, or your government. It's what it is.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It sure is.
And
Um,
that's good. I'll make one other point. Some people have, because diseases, of health conditions, have to spend a lot more money. A lot of people that they live to be 86 and they go to sleep one night and they have a heart attack and they're dead and they don't cost the system a lot of money and they pay into it. Some people have diabetes when they're 15 years old and end up with huge medical bills. Well, a just and moral society says we're going to take care of these people as we well should. Not only do I have any objection to it, I think it's a question of morality that we do that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think it is it really usually has been a winning issue for Democrats. I think it will be as big a winning issue almost as ever in the 2026 midterm because of that big ugly bill that was just passed.
So,
James, Patricia in Vancouver, Canada. My friend Norm Burlstein and Jane Boone, his wife, are out in Vancouver. I am so jealous. What a wonderful spot that is. But Patricia asked, are Governor Abbott of Texas and the Republican state legislatures attempt to redraw congressional districts the beginning of states reshaping the congressional elections of 26 and 28 to ensure they're favorable to the Republicans and Trump?
well, you're more up to date on issues than I am. I don't know how they can get 5 more to gerrymander the goddamn thing so much.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
How much? I don't know how much more blood they can get out to turn. But what they're basically saying, I understand what they're saying. We can't win a fair fight. We've always known that. So we're going to do everything we can not to have a fair fight. Now, what will happen, and is that they'll do that. Illinois will come back and try to squeeze some. New York State will come back and try to squeeze some. California come back and try to squeeze some. And you're just going to have an entire fight of seeing who can gerrymander the most. I don't, I just wish there was some way we'd just go to, having a usual suspects of 7 people draw congressional districts and just look at continuity, adjacency, and just go about that and get a true reflection. But I think right now, for the Democrats to win the Congress, they have to get something like 53, 54% of the popular vote.
Yeah.
I mean, it's blatantly anti-democratic. I mean, blatantly.
Well, those those redistricting commissions have worked in places like California and Arizona, but
Well,
they
they
don't
work if the other side uses them.
right,
They don't
right,
work if one people says, "Hey, we're going to play by the rules," and the other side is, "Screw your rules." But we don't have rules here. We just do what we want. So down, they, and I would say if they want to do that, then fine. But the other people got to do it too. They want all the Democratic states to have these commissions, and then they go to, and then Trump orders the Texas legislature to drop 5 more districts.
yeah.
I, there you
Well,
go again.
Sandy in Durwood, Maryland, has a perfect follow up to this. She says, what are the chances that this country will hold a genuine series of elections in 2026? Sandy, I would put it at 80%. What that says is there's a 20% chance, which I've never thought in my entire life, that maybe we won't. That if Trump and the Republicans see some kind of a Democratic wave, that they will try to block it in any way they can. The Justice Department already is subpoenaing voting rolls in various states. They're not doing that for better information. They're doing that to figure out a way that they can stymie voting, Democratic votes. So I think I cannot imagine a time in my entire life covering politics that I ever thought there was even a slight chance that an election could be called off or postponed.
So this is a reasonable scenario. But the Democrats have blowout wins in Virginia and New Jersey. I mean sticker shock numbers. I don't mean just winning. I mean like holy
Right,
shit. And I think
right.
that's what you're going to see. Then you're going to start seeing the congressional generic. Then the Republicans start coming home and say, "Shit, man, we're going to lose some stuff." And then somebody is going to say 2 words that is going to trigger Trump in ways that you can't believe, and it's called the Senate. All right, don't kid yourself. if this momentum keeps going, the United States Senate's in play. I know it's 53-47. I know the vice president gets to break a tie. I know that the one more vulnerable, we have to win a lot of red seats to get to win 4 Senate seats. I'm telling you, it's not impossible. I think we're going to win in North Carolina. Highly likely to win in Maine. Okay, I think we're much, but I think if the United States Senate is going to come down, you ready, to Mississippi, and I think we have a much better chance of picking up that Senate seat than anybody really believes. But if they think they know they're going to lose the House, and then people come in and give them poll briefings and said, "Sir, now you're not going to be able to get any appointments through," and that they're going to hold hearings left and right, and you don't want Sheldon Whitehouse up your ass. I can tell you that right now because you're not going to look good, and that's why your 20% is not a ridiculous figure. It's real possibility because he's going to see what's coming around him. The combination of Virginia and New Jersey, the deteriorating polls, and the possibility of losing the United States Senate will make him try to think of anything not to have an election.
Yeah. That's a frightening prospect, but I think it's absolutely.
I think we need to be vigilant. I agree with you.
Absolutely. James, I have saved the best question for last. It is from Jim in Boise, Idaho.
Oh, wow.
Jim asked both of us, he said, "Are you ready for this question?" I mean, I want to give a build up here because this is really, this may be the greatest question of all times. Where did you both learn to speak such good English?
Thank you, Jim. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I love you, Jim.
I always got a history. I think all the English I learned was from my 6th grade teacher called Mother Robert. And she made us diagram sentences. I don't know if you remember that when you were in school. I don't think anybody did. Well,
I do, yeah.
My daughter had to do it in high school in like 2011. And I think I'm not very good. My grammar is not very good to the extent I have anything in the grammar, which is not much. I think I owe it almost all to Mother Robert, who taught me 6th grade English.
Well, I don't know if we should take credit or not, but Jim, I got to tell you, you are our favorite listener questioner today, and it's Boise, Idaho is really just kind of a wonderful place in a very troubled state. So,
beautiful place. Boise State's a very, of course, they're famous for their blue field and their football team. Very, very good schools. There's a lot of.
But Jim, you have set a standard that we'll try to achieve in ensuing weeks.
That's the first time I've ever been accused of good English, but like Jack said, I don't deserve this, but I don't deserve arthritis either.
Every time we screw up a subject or a predicate, Jim, I'm going to think about you. So
dangling participle.
All right, guys, one more today. We now are going to announce. A couple of weeks ago, we sent out a survey of who was the most dangerous, the worst Trump appointee. We gave you 10 choices and the ability to write in. And we got over 1,000 respondents. I remember Peter Hart and Bob Teeter telling me years ago that for a national survey, we could do it with, I think, 840 respondents. So for our podcast listeners and a few others, we had a response rate much greater than that. The winner, and really by a landslide, James, this was not close. I thought it might be close. The winner was Stephen Miller, the hate-filled White House Deputy Chief of Staff who hates immigrants, who was the author of some terrible bills in the first administration separating kids from the parents. And now he's going, and they have totally forgotten about their original pledge to primarily go after deporting migrants who had committed crimes. They're now raiding Home Depot lots, any kind of shopping center in a Hispanic neighborhood. He is somebody, his former colleagues in the book written about him say he's a white nationalist, but he is a very powerful figure, James, and he won in a walk.
Well, I could see that. I did. I voted. I'll be very clear, and I'm going to disclose my vote. I'll assign. I voted for Hedgesmith. Not that I think that the odiosity is that actually a word? I don't know. That's Alfred Boise if it is,
Let's
but
ask Jim.
yeah,
Let's ask
yeah.
Jim.
Okay, I can't. No one can deny what an odious person that Stephen Miller is. I pick Hedgesmith because I think the damage that he can do to defensive. I think we have a new president in 2028. Human suffering that this guy's caused is unbelievable. The economic pain he's causing is unbelievable. But I think that can be corrected quicker or more quickly than the politicization of the United States military, which is pretty critical, and they're putting buffoons and good people are resigning every day, and you just can't bring that kind of experience back. But I can understand why people voted for Stephen Miller, but I cast my ballot for Pete Hedgesmith.
Well, I did vote for Stephen Miller because, among other things, I think if Stephen Miller wants to, he has such clout with Trump, he can interfere with the Defense Department. As a matter of fact, there are stories he really wants to be National Security Advisor, a post that's gone unfilled. And he's a man who is so mean, but he has Trump's total confidence. So it was there weren't easy choices, but
No, no,
Stephen
no.
Miller got 37% of the vote, and since there were write-ins in an 11-person field. And tomorrow morning, we're going to put out on the website, on Substack and YouTube, we'll put out the 2 through 11 finishers. But I will say this ahead of time: the people that finished second, third, and fourth, James, combined, they didn't get the same as much a percentage vote as Stephen Miller.
Yeah, no. Look, I understand the vote. I cast my ballot differently, but I'm voting. I'm gonna vote for Willie Mays or Walter Johnson.
Or Henry Aaron, who I would
Yeah,
vote
yeah,
for.
or whatever.
I couldn't stay up for
Yeah,
that entire All
yeah,
Star game, but I love the tribute to Henry Aaron.
right, right, right.
So, all right, thank you for voting. We'll try to come up with other contests, and tomorrow morning we'll give you 2 through 11. Thank you all for listening. And for those of
Thank you.
you letter writers, if we didn't get to yours this week, we'll get to it next week.